A child learns courage from the way adults handle their questions. Why questions matter more than they seem. A child's question can look small from the outside. Why is the sky that color? Why do people get sick? Why do I have to apologize? Why did that happen? Adults hear these questions constantly, and sometimes they answer quickly without thinking much about the moment. But for a child, a question is rarely just a request for information. It is also an act of trust. The child is showing curiosity, uncertainty, and sometimes vulnerability. The way adults respond to those questions can quietly shape whether children feel brave enough to keep asking. How adults teach courage without realizing it. Children learn courage from more than speeches or advice. They learn it from watching how adults respond when something feels uncertain. When a child asks a question and an adult listens seriously, the child learns that curiosity is safe. When an adult dismisses the question, laughs at it, or reacts with irritation, the child may learn the opposite. They may begin thinking that questions are embarrassing or inconvenient. How many children stop asking not because they stopped wondering, but because they learned that wondering out loud did not feel safe? Why dismissed questions can leave a mark? Most adults probably do not mean to discourage children. They may be tired, busy, distracted, or unsure how to explain something. But children do not always understand adult stress clearly. They may simply remember the feeling of being shut down. A short answer, like "don't ask that" or "you're too young to understand," can feel much larger to a child. Over time, repeated dismissal can make a child less willing to speak up, even when they genuinely need help. A situation that feels familiar. Children often ask the deepest questions at the most ordinary times. In the car, at the dinner table, while getting ready for school, right before bed. The timing is not always convenient, but the question usually matters to them. Sometimes a child is not looking for a perfect explanation. They are looking to see whether the adult will stay calm, patient, and present. That response teaches something beyond the answer itself. Why courage begins with feeling safe. Courage does not mean a child never feels nervous. It means they feel supported enough to ask, try, admit confusion, or speak honestly even when they are unsure. Adults help build that courage by making questions feel welcome rather than risky. A child who is allowed to ask without shame slowly learns that uncertainty is not something to hide. That lesson becomes important later in school. Friendships, problem solving, and personal growth. The difference between answering and encouraging. Answering a question gives information. Encouraging a question gives confidence. Both matter, but they are not the same. An adult can answer correctly while still making the child feel small. Another adult may not know the answer immediately, but can still make the child feel respected by saying, "That's a good question. Let's think about it." Children do not only remember facts, they remember how learning felt. Why adults do not need perfect answers. Some adults avoid difficult questions because they worry about giving the wrong answer. But children do not need adults to know everything. In many cases, it is more powerful for a child to see an adult admit uncertainty honestly. Saying, "I'm not sure, but we can find out," teaches intellectual courage. It shows that not knowing is not shameful. It also teaches children that learning continues throughout life, even for adults. How questions build independent thinking. When children are encouraged to ask questions, they begin practicing independent thinking. They learn to notice details, challenge simple explanations, and search for reasons behind what they see. This does not make them disrespectful. It makes them thoughtful. A child who asks why is learning how to connect cause and effect, evaluate information, and understand the world more deeply. Those habits become the foundation for stronger learning later. Why some questions make adults uncomfortable. Children sometimes ask questions that adults find difficult. Questions about unfairness, illness, death, conflict, money, mistakes, or emotions can catch adults off guard. The instinct may be to avoid the conversation quickly, but uncomfortable questions are often the moments where children most need steadiness. The adult does not have to explain everything at once. They only need to show that difficult topics can be approached with honesty and care. The role of tone. A child often hears tone before meaning. Even if the words are technically correct, an impatient tone can make the child feel like they did something wrong by asking. A calm tone sends a different message. It says the question is allowed. It says the child is not a burden. This matters because courage grows in emotional environments where children feel safe enough to be curious, confused, and honest. Why encourage children become braver students? In school, students are constantly asked to learn unfamiliar material. The children who feel comfortable asking questions usually have an advantage because they do not hide confusion they are more likely to clarify instructions, ask for help, and explore deeper ideas. That confidence often begins long before the classroom. It begins when adults at home respond to curiosity with patience. The quiet damage of mocking curiosity. Mocking a child's question may seem harmless in the moment, but to the child, the reaction can feel like rejection. They may begin choosing silence over curiosity. That silence might look like obedience, but it can also hide fear. This is why adults have to be careful. A child's question may sound small, but the courage behind it deserves protection. Why listening is sometimes the best answer. Sometimes the most important part of answering a child is listening first. Before correcting, explaining, or redirecting, adults can pause and let the child finish. That pause communicates respect. It tells the child that their thoughts are worth hearing. Many children do not need long lectures. They need adults who take their curiosity seriously enough to listen. Final thoughts. A child learns courage from the way adults handle their questions. Patient answers build confidence. Dismissive reactions create hesitation. Adults do not need perfect explanations to support a child's courage. They need presence, honesty, and respect. When children learn that their questions are welcome, they become more willing to think deeply, speak honestly, and keep learning, even when they feel unsure. Sometimes courage begins with a simple question and an adult who chooses to listen. Thanks for watching.